Hey guys, how's it going? ItZMuRdA here, coming at you today with a rather untraditional video for my style. As you know, I typically don't do straight up gun reviews as they are covered in depth by a lot of other great YouTubers out there. And I tend to prefer giving you guys more analytical approaches like you see in my Analyze This videos and things like that. They serve to supplement the commentary and the reviews and the Q&A that I do a lot on my live stream over at ItZMuRdA.com, so be sure to check that out if you don't already and hit that follow button over there. Anyway, that said, this isn't really a flare gun review, but rather a look into how I got over 600 kills with the flare gun in under 24 hours. Now in the background you'll see some bits and pieces of footage that was taken from my stream over the course of the day on Sunday, which should serve as a good backdrop for the types of things that I'll be talking about. Now before we start, let me back up a few steps. So if you don't already know, the flare guns were available for purchase from Wednesday, July 3rd through Sunday, July 7th as part of the holiday promotion for the 4th of July that SOE put on for PlanetSide 2. Now if you bought them then, you can keep them forever, but if you haven't bought one yet, you're unfortunately out of luck until most likely we see something like them again maybe for the holiday next year, or maybe even for New Year's, since that has some similarities with fireworks and things like that. Now there was a leaderboard challenge proposed by Matt Higbee to see who could get the most kills with the flare guns during the span of the event over of course about 4 or 5 days or so, and the top 10 were awarded prizes. Now since I was on vacation until the last day of the challenge, I wanted to make it an extra personal challenge for myself and see if I could breach the top 10 in less than 24 hours. Now I did just that, and I ultimately finished in 6th place with 666 kills, even though it wasn't my intention to stop at that number exactly. And it's kind of spooky, I guess. I was playing Saturday night, or rather Sunday night, and my computer crashed after like a 5-hour session, and I was ready to go to bed anyway, so I just logged off, and then I woke up to see that that's how many kills I ended at, so that was kind of weird. But anyway, congrats to everybody who participated, and great effort from everybody. I know I'll give one shout out to Cole is Epic, because I know he was on the leaderboard a lot, and I think he finished 11th place. I know he had at least 500 kills with it, and that's rough to always be the next one over the cutoff point, but nonetheless, it is what it is, I guess. And great effort from everybody that participated, whether you were in the top 10 or not. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself as much as I did, aside from the fact that trying to force kills with this stupid flare gun can be pretty frustrating at times. But anyway, for those that didn't care about the leaderboard, there is also the unlockable Pyro title for reaching 50 kills with any flare gun, which many of you might still be interested in acquiring. So I'm hoping this video helps to ease your pain a little bit in that process. So as for the flare gun itself, it's an incredibly weak gun overall. It deals 375 damage per shot in its maximum damage range, which you typically will be within using it, giving the very steep drop-off that it has, like an underbarrel grenade, and the quick detonation time of the projectile as well. It's only can be in the air for a maximum of 2 seconds. Or obviously whatever it collides with first. Now because of that, going toe-to-toe with the flare gun is probably never really going to do you much good unless you're fighting somebody who's AFK or somebody who just installed the game 5 minutes ago, I don't know. But basically it left us with a few creative options of pairing it with other weapons for its maximum effectiveness. Now a popular choice was the knife and flare gun combo. If you watched Rel's video, which was a great all-you-need-to-know review of the gun, as all of his videos always are. Really awesome to watch, and a lot of thoughtful insight there that he gives. So I do recommend you checking out his channel if you don't already. That's Warpath Rel is his YouTube name. And anyway, he showed off the fact that in that video you could do a quick knife and shot combo like you can with any of the heavy pistols, the Commissioner, the Underboss. And the interesting thing was, given the delay of the flare gun, oftentimes you would get an instant kill that would credit the kill to the flare gun rather than the knife. I tried it a bit, it definitely does work, but I also noticed that there was still a decent margin of error, or maybe I just had bad luck with it, that was causing the knife to occasionally score the kill instead of the gun. Because of that and how difficult flare gun kills are to come by in general, I really didn't want to risk losing a handful of them to knife kills accidentally. I did, however, often use the reverse of that, that is to knife first and then, have the short delay following a knife as normally you would with any weapon, and then use the flare gun to follow up to kill targets. That wasn't my primary method of acquiring kills, however. as it does a total of 1,000 damage, the knife and the flare gun together, which will kill any soldier without nanoweave at all, and an infiltrator with nanoweave 1 or less. Obviously, that doesn't include injured players, and any values that I cite in this video will assume that your target is at full health, as it can be pretty hard to predict on the battlefield these days if somebody is injured or not. Now, that being said, if you're aiming to go for the Pyro title, you'll still want to have your knife and gun combo ready for situations where you either don't have a better choice, or you think that your target's likely to die with the 2-hit combo, be it if you know that they're already injured, or you know that they don't have nanoweave, or you at least think that they don't have nanoweave. Especially if they're infiltrators, they have a higher chance of dying to this given their lower total hit points. That is, they have 100 less total hit points from having a smaller shield to begin with, compared to the other classes. But again, they can still survive it at full health with nanoweave 2 or higher, which is pretty cheap. That's only 11 cert points. So I don't know, it's not always going to give you that 2-shot by any stretch. So anyway, what I did, my personal preference is, well, I should first say my personal preference is to run Infiltrator. When doing this, you can obviously make it work with other classes because the flare gun's available to all of them, as a pistol, as a sidearm, except for a max, of course, and you can maybe do it with like a shotgun and then follow up with it. But I really feel like if you're serious about this, it's best by far to play Infiltrator, for a number of reasons. But my main one is the setup that I ran, and that's using a bolt-action sniper rifle in close quarters for maximum effectiveness, with the knife and flare gun combo as kind of my backup to that. So I equip my bolt rifles with suppressors, which is something I'd pretty much never do, since I'd only be using them in extremely close quarters, and I'd rather not be seen or heard from the initial shot while I'm taking time to switch to my flare gun and then fire the follow-up. There's a bit of delay there, as you'll see and as you'll find out, so you don't want to give yourself away on your very first opening shot, where people can hear you or see you on the map very, very easily, because it's the flare gun that you really want to still have a sort of an element of surprise with. Now, I'd recommend not using a foregrip on your sniper rifle, as it'll only increase the time to switch back to your primary weapon, with little to no actual benefit otherwise for sniper rifles and semi-automatic weapons in general. Now, this is the build that I ran for pretty much the entire time, and while you can use any bolt-action rifle, there are two sensible choices, I think, and I'll talk about both of those. The maximum damage choice would be to use the long shot on NC, or the parallax on VS, or the Rams on TR, as those rifles are the only ones that deal 800 maximum damage instead of 750 like all the other ones. The idea with any bolt rifle is to shoot your target with it and then switch to your pistol for the follow-up kill. I say pistol, but of course I mean flare gun. The benefit of the 800 damage rifles is that, in conjunction with the flare gun, they deal a total of 1,175 damage, which is enough to kill any infiltrator, regardless of nanoweave, and any other class, any non-infiltrator with nanoweave 3 or below. The downside to this, of course, is that nanoweave 4 is pretty popular among a lot of people, since it's very cheap to get all the way up to nanoweave 4, and with the exception of infils, you still won't do enough damage to 2-shot players that have nanoweave 4 or higher in any of the other classes. Also, another downside is that these rifles offer a 6x scope minimum. That is, if you don't have a scope equipped at all, you'll be using a 6x scope. So you're either relying on a terrible scope for close quarters or the already bad hipfire that all sniper rifles offer. I really wish that you could get a laser dot on them, but unfortunately you can't. As I'm sure you'll find out, you'll take some shots where it looks like your target's right on top of you point blank, and you'll still manage to miss the shot. So that's not really something that you can rely on unless you know for a fact you've got the gun right in their back or something like that. So anyway, I used the 800 damage rifles for a little bit to see that if I felt that it was worth the extra damage, but ultimately I decided to switch to a different gun, and that gun, as you might imagine, is the bolt-action rifle that allows you to use close-quarters scopes, for example 1x, 2x, and so forth. There's only one rifle of this kind for each empire, and they are the SAS-R for NC, the Ghost for VS, and the TSAR-42 for TR. Now this is my recommended route to take, and the one that got me most of my kills. I ran it with a 1x scope and a suppressor personally, but it's totally acceptable to use with just iron sights if you prefer that as well. You obviously, if you're like you really love your 2x scope, you could do that too, but I would think that I'd rather have as small of a magnification as possible for the very, very tight close quarters situations that you'll be in. Anyway, these guns deal a maximum of 750 damage per shot, as I mentioned earlier, and coupled with the flare gun, that's a total of 1125. The downside is that infiltrators with nanoweave 5 would now survive the shot combo, and all of the other classes with nanoweave 3 or above would now survive it as well, instead of just nanoweave 4 or 5. The latter I don't really think is a big deal because nanoweave 3 is kind of that weird point. If I had to guess, I would say nanoweave 3 might be the least commonly certed nanoweave rank, just because it's very cheap to still upgrade to 4 if you've gone that far. And I think other people who are short on certs would still only get 1 or 2 because it's only 1 or 11 certs rather than splurging for 50 more for 3. It's kind of that mid-rank that I would think wouldn't get as much attention. You either put a little bit in or you put a lot of bit in. So I don't really know that is a huge deal that it brings you down 1 more nanoweave rank in this case. Now the benefits of this one obviously is that you have much greater success in close quarters with an optimal scope or iron sights, and I think that really outweighed the slight difference in damage in my opinion. So also keeping in mind, many occasions players will be injured already, and in the short time that I used the 800 damage rifles, I found myself unintentionally killing them with the initial rifle shot, quite often actually. So the reduction of 50 damage might not be as bad as it seems from a practical and realistic standpoint, and I noticed when I switched to that I wouldn't kill them quite as much. I know it feels odd that there would be a difference of 50 health at play, but it does actually happen when people are injured from other soldiers firing at them and things like that. And now the one other thing I wanted to mention about these rifles, which isn't really pertaining to flare guns or anything like that, is that there's still scope sway on the close quarters bolt rifles. That's because it's not a feature of the scope, but rather a feature of the rifle. So all sniper rifles in PlanetSide 2 have scope sway, regardless if you're using iron sights or 1x or 2x or 12x or whatever, which I think is pretty silly, and I hope that the change that we saw to night vision scope sway will now move SOE towards a model where the scope sway is part of the scope and not a part of the gun. Obviously they can do it as they did with the night vision scopes, so hopefully they go ahead and change that, because it just seems silly to be using iron sights or a 1x and still have the scope sway. That being said, I wouldn't really take it as a downside, and that's why I wanted to talk about it last in regards to these guns, because I almost never held my breath in the many hundreds of kills that I got on Sunday, and I hit shots quite often. At the range that you're going to be firing at, the scope sway is so minimal that you really don't even need to hold your breath, and you can probably still nail all your shots. But I did want to mention it so that you guys knew about it. If you were lining up a shot where you're standing still, or your target's standing still, or you just want to be as accurate as possible, just so that you know that you can still hold your breath to make them a little bit more accurate when you're using the 1x or rather the close quarters bolt rifles. Now keep in mind, with any bolt and flare setup, there's a lot of preparation time and a lot of recharge time when going for a single kill, and a whole lot of things that can mess you up, and that's even assuming that you don't miss a single shot. Nanoweave is a big killer here. But so is Heavy Assault Shield, and so is the medic ability that heals you up over time, as well as med kits and resto kits and things like that, as the time that it takes you to deal the follow-up damage can really allow a medic to easily heal somebody up, or if you're fighting a medic, to heal themselves up, or somebody to pop a med kit or something like that. And of course a full heavy shield would certainly make it so that they're not going to die in your follow-up shot from your flare gun. Now in the cases where 2 shots wouldn't kill, I'd try to kind of juke around and jump around and recloak momentarily and get my reloaded and kind of make sure that they don't see exactly where I'm at, and then go for a 3rd shot. It would usually kill them, with the exception of somebody who had high nanoweave and heavy shield, or they were just being constantly healed by another medic or something like that. And if you're really crazy, you can try for a 4th shot, or if you feel like you have the advantage over the person. That's one thing that I wanted to mention as well, and make clear that as I mentioned with the suppressor earlier on the bolt rifle, you really want to have that, get some burst damage in, essentially, where you shoot them and then you switch as fast as possible to your flare gun and you hit them with that, and only then are they starting to really react to it after you've got the 2 shots in. And maybe that killed them, maybe it didn't, but then you have some time to kind of re-stealth and reload and do whatever you need to do, take cover a little bit. And with the suppressor, they probably didn't see you on the map, they probably didn't really hear you, they don't really know exactly where you're at, and then you can follow up with a 3rd shot if need be, or so on and so forth. I guess that's kind of up to you to decide what you think might be best at the time. Now if you need to, if they've got heavy shield and a medic, and there's been some situations where I was taking like 6 shots at people. If you feel like you can do it, go for it, but sometimes you might just have to run away and reset, and that's certainly worth doing if you feel like you need to reset the battle in your favor and then go at it again. Usually if you do this fast enough, you can kind of get away without them seeing exactly where you were and whatnot. So the other thing that I would mention is that if you have trouble and you think you're in a jam and you think you're going to die, it's not the end of the world to finish them off with like a swipe of your knife or something like that. I did that a few times. I know it doesn't give you the flare kill that you want, but it's usually better than dying and having to respawn if you think you've got no other choice. So swipe them real quick, then reset your situation and get ready to move on to the next target, rather than having to spend the time respawning and running back and all things like that. So regardless of the situation, you might have to think on your feet a little bit, but make sure you have everything prepared. As acquiring your target with your bolt rifle, shooting with your bolt rifle, switching to your flare gun, reacquiring the target, shooting with your flare gun, reloading your flare gun, switching back to your bolt rifle, pulling the bolt back, and then being ready to go again takes many precious seconds in the heat of battle. And now when you've successfully killed a target and you're looking to prep for the next kill, make sure to reload your flare gun first and then switch back to your bolt rifle to allow yourself time to pull the bolt back and be ready for the next shot. And then of course you have at it again. One thing I did notice is that, I don't know if it was a bug or just me switching quickly or whatever, but certain times I'd pull the bolt back on my rifle and then I'd go to like hit a med kit or do something else, switch to another slot, and then I'd go back thinking I had already pulled it back, and then I'd have to pull it back again. I don't know if the animation and the actual function of the weapon is off or if it's a bug or whatever, but I would say make sure you have everything else set first, make sure you're reloaded in your flare, make sure you're healed up, so on and so forth, and then when you're ready to go for the kill, switch back to your bolt rifle. Give yourself that extra second to pull the bolt back, so you're not caught switching to it, and then you're like, oh crap, I'm unstealth. I've made my presence aware to my enemy, and I'm still pulling the bolt back, and that's just going to give him time to notice you and kill you. You really need to have that element of surprise with the 1-shot, 2-shot, and then if that kills him, great, and if not, you can still use that buffer time while the enemy's reacting to your advantage to try to get another shot in, or to get away if you need to reset for whatever reason. So I hope this really helped you guys out in your journey for the Pyro title, or if you're crazy like me and you want an Auraxium with the thing, good luck with that too. I probably will go for 1 Auraxium on it since I'm more than halfway there at some point, but I doubt that I'm gonna, like Auraxium all of the guns. Like that's crazy. I mean, that might be a goal years down the road, but I bet they'll be adding things to the game fast enough that I wouldn't have any interest in doing that. Although I might go for the Pyro title on my alts just for fun, because 50 kills is a heck of a lot better than 1160. So please feel free to ask if you have any questions. As always, leave them in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter with the same handle as on YouTube at ItZMuRdA. And of course, I also encourage you guys to check out the live stream at ItZMuRdA.com or twitch.tv/ItZMuRdA_TV, where I stream PlanetSide 2 every single day with very few exceptions. And of course, if you found this video helpful or enjoyed listening to me ramble on, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I really, really appreciate all of that support from you guys. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around. Have a good one.